Well, hello, hello, hello. This is Dr. Nick, your favorite personal growth coach, and welcome to Adulting in My Purpose. As always, I am excited to be with you to always talk about everything adulting, right? We know that this is a huge transition of life. Going into adulthood, and it's not easy. It's hard. It sucks sometimes, but there are things that we can do to make the journey a little bit more easier. Didn't say easy, but a little easier. And that's what we do. And here at Adulting in My Purpose, we talk how can we truly live that life of impact and influencing using those gifts that God has given us to truly live a purpose-driven life. So if you are listening in for the first time, welcome. I am Dr. Nicole Rankin. I am a certified personal growth coach, and really the vision here is to become a community and a platform to allow millennial young professionals a place where they can truly discover their purpose, understand why are they here, why are you here, what are the things that God has given you to do, how do you do it, how do you use your gifts, how do you truly manifest them and live a life of influence and impact. So that is what the movement is all about. Be sure to go to our Facebook group. Join in our community. We have some amazing adulting ambassadors. Excuse me. We have some amazing adulting ambassadors that are there to help serve and guide. We do some fun things. We have some events coming up that I will be sharing soon. So go into the community, introduce yourself, ask questions. Don't live a life in silence. Like, you don't have to. We're building this community for you, by you. And so again, I'm Dr. Nicole Rankin. Dr. Nick is what everybody calls me. So if you're listening in for the first time, welcome. Those that are tuning in from before, hey y'all, welcome back. So today, pretty interesting. I was doing some posts about purpose on my IG, and I got a comment that asked about fear and how fear plays a role in us not pursuing our purpose or even going into uncover and reveal our purpose, how fear is that a barrier for that particular person that was asking the question. So the question was, how do we get over fear? How do we deal with that? And I addressed the question via DM, but I was like, you know what? Fear is such a powerful word, and I know that it affects a lot of people. And so let me, go in and just kind of sit with this fear a little bit and do a whole teaching on it. So that's what I'm going to do today. Going to dive in and kind of just let's dissect fear, because fear is like I said, it's a powerful word, and it's something that stops us from moving forward and doing the things that we know we should do, or the things that we do want to do and experience because of fear. So let's go. We'll start with the first thing that I did when I wanted to understand fear is kind of get a concept of, what is the definition? So, of course, we have Google, we have dictionaries. So I'm going to read the definition of fear, and it says, fear is an unpleasant emotion caused by the belief that someone or something is dangerous, likely to cause pain, or a threat. I'm going to read that again. An unpleasant emotion caused by the belief that someone or something is dangerous and likely to cause pain or is a threat. It also said that fear is to be afraid or apprehensive of someone or something. And so when I thought about that, breaking down the definition, it says it's an unpleasant emotion caused by a belief. And then the belief is that someone or something is dangerous, will cause pain, or is a threat. So when I thought about belief. I always think about self-awareness, and you all will hear me talk about self-awareness often, because I do believe that it's a vital point, purpose of our growth, and even understanding our purpose and living out our purpose. We have to become self-aware, and it's vital to us both in our professional and our personal life. So to become more aware of yourself, you got to know your strengths, you got to know your weaknesses, you have to know how those work together, and how you can improve yourself. So all of these things are a part of self-awareness. There's a law of awareness that says that to grow yourself is to know yourself. So you got to know you, right? You got to know you better than anyone else. A lot of times we position ourselves where we're trying to get to know people and we don't even know ourselves. So taking the time to invest in you, to understand who am I, is going to truly help you when you're trying to identify your purpose and walk in your purpose, right? So the only way that this will happen, the only way that we can grow and know ourselves, is to do that little bit by little bit every single day, right? This is a journey. It's a marathon, not a sprint. So every day you have to, start loving on yourself, to begin to know yourself, to get to understand yourself, to increase your self-awareness. And one way to do it, and when we think about self-awareness, I want you to think about 4 aspects of self, because there's 2 words: self-awareness. So awareness is understanding, and then there's self. So when we think about self, I want you to think about self in 4 aspects: physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. So that's physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. And so when we think about the physical self, right, this is the thing that we see, or everybody else see: our biological factors, not only our biological factors, but our environmental factors. So the way we look, our eyes, our nose, our skin color, our hair texture, our genetics, even in our environmental aspect, from our cultural upbringing, our location or geographic location. So all of these things are physical aspects of self that we need to be aware of. The next one is emotional self. Emotional self speaks to how our bodies react with feelings or sensations, right? Remember the word, when we came from fear, it says it was a unpleasant emotion. So I want you to make that connection. So we have an emotional self, right? There's feelings, there's sensations that happen because of circumstances, some things, and evoke an emotion within us. And then the next is the mental aspect. When I'm thinking about a mental aspect, I'm thinking about your thoughts and your imaginations, right? You all often hear me say, what you think is what you feel is what you say, and what you say is what you do. So it's so important to understand the mental aspect of self. What are the things that you're thinking about? What is the thought process? As a man thinketh, so is he. And then the last one is spiritual self. And when I mean spiritual self, I'm not talking about religion per se. I am talking about your belief system, meaning that your spiritual self is your core self of identity, having a self of identity. What are your personal values? What are your core values? What is the worldview that helps motivate you in this life? That's what I mean by spiritual self. So we all have a spiritual self in that we need to be aware of. So now we understand the 4 aspects of self: the physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual, right? Because remember, going back to the definition of fear, it's an unpleasant emotion caused by the belief that someone or something is dangerous and likely to cause pain or a threat. So when we listen to that definition, you can hear all 4 aspects of self in that definition. So what I want to do now is kind of break down how that all works, because we got to understand this thing about fear and how it all works with our self, all 4 aspects of ourself. So let's talk about our physical self, right? Our physical self is, again, the things that we experience due to our life experience. Fear is a fear is a biological response, right? It's experienced in the mind first, then it's triggered physiologically for us to go in. So when we experience fear physically, our brain alerts our nervous systems, then things, our body reacts, our palm starts getting sweaty, our heart beats faster, our blood pressure start rising, our heart rate goes faster, we have stress hormones that are released, so we may start breathing increasing. So there are things that happen to us physically, right, when we experience fear. And these fears can come on by some type of traumatic experience, some type of hurt, some type of pain, some circumstances that has happened in our environment that causes this trigger. And if we don't deal with it, if we don't understand it, it becomes something that our body is always remember. It's like muscle memory, right? So if we don't identify it, and we're not aware of it, our body is going to react the same way every time there is an occurrence, right? So it's so important to understand the physical aspect of fear, and there may be some things that you are afraid of and you have no idea where it came from, right? So this is why it's so important to understand and do self-reflection. What are the things that has gotten you to the point of where you are? All right, so think about that in your physical aspect. So I want you to identify some physical hurt, physical trauma, physical pain, physical experiences that you are aware of that causes you to fear. And this is going to take some time. Again, these are self-reflection opportunities to grow. So that's the first thing that I want you to think about. So we're going to talk about how to overcome fear in all 4 aspects of self. So number 1 is identify physical hurt, trauma, pain experience that has caused fear. Number 2, let's go to our emotional self. So emotional self is your feelings, sensations, right? So your emotions serve as a point of, again, it's biology, yes, but it also serves as information from the environment, right? So we've heard of, or you may have not heard, the fight or flight aspect of your emotions. When something happens, your body's triggered, you get, it's either you're gonna fight or you're gonna run away, right? So it's your emotions. Fear is a part of all of that, and it can be motivating, but it can also stagnate you, because fear, again, thinking of the definition of fear, it's an unpleasant emotion, right? So it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good. And fear that is based highly on emotion is perceived as fears that can harm you, right? It's a belief. So you are telling yourself that these fears are dangerous. It's going to hurt you. It's a threat. So the more you tell yourself, the more your body is inclined to have these types of feelings or sensations when you're faced with these particular circumstances, that maybe you want to try something new, but then the feeling or sensation of fear comes in because you have told yourself, right, that you are afraid. You have told yourself that you are not, you don't know what to do, right? So you are creating this belief system that is causing you to experience fear. So I want you to see that connection. The next thing is, going back to the emotional aspect, the important thing to remember about the emotional self is that we cannot avoid some feelings, like feelings come wherever you want to. I remember I was just recently watching one of those Netflix movies I was been watching. And the only reason I did it because everybody on Facebook was talking about it and how much it was going to make you cry. And it was so sad. So I was like, you know what? I want to see what everybody else is talking about. I think it was from scratch, from something from scratch. And I was watching it. I was like, okay, I get the plot. She's having issues. She wants to get away. Okay, girl meets guy, they fall in love, blah blah blah. Okay, and then it gets to like midway of the episode, and I'm just like, oh. So it's just like these are not emotions that I am, used to, or in my mind. I was like, oh, I'm not gonna cry. It was nothing, but it was a trigger. There was something in the movie that triggered me to emotions to bring me to tears. So again, it's the same thing with fear. We have these sensations and these feelings that come about. So we have to identify and recognize when those feelings come up. Right? Because what you are going to see when you begin to recognize when those feelings of fear come up, you'll start to see a pattern in your life that you can now identify where is this coming from? What is the root cause? So a lot of times when we are trying to do something new, trying to experience greater things that are beyond our comfort zone, trying to live that purpose-driven life, we often, make excuses, or we can basically our alibis, excuses or alibis, but our excuses and alibis are rooted in fear. If you peel back the layers, it's actually rooted in fear, and we have to recognize and identify the fears that are associated with the emotions that we have. Right. So you can now track that pattern to kind of get to that root cause. Okay. So the next thing is we did with physical, emotional, then mental. So this is one of the most powerful part of self, I believe, is the mental part. It's your mindset. Your mind controls just how you move, how you make decisions, just everything that you do. Again, how you think is how you feel is what you say is what you do. And so when you're operating in fear, you're thinking on it. So if you're thinking fearful thoughts, you're going to feel fearful. If you feel fearful, you're going to start saying fearful things. And then if you're saying fearful things, then you're going to start doing fearful things. And so it's an endless cycle. So that's why you have to evaluate your mindset. What are the things that you're thinking about? How are you pouring out your energy? Because where your energy flows, that's what grows. So if you're focused on a fear, which is a belief, mindset, it's a belief. If you're focused on it, that is what's going to enlarge, that is what's going to grow, and it's going to overtake your feelings, your emotional self. It's going to overtake your physical self. It's going to overtake your mental self, and eventually overtake your spiritual self, and what we'll talk about next. So evaluate your mindset and what you're thinking about. And what thoughts do you have? How are you guarding your self-talk? What are the things that you're telling yourself? What are the things that you're allowing others to tell you? Right? What are you believing? Remember, the definition of fear is a belief. So if the definition of fear is an unpleasant emotion of a belief that someone or someone is dangerous, is it safe to say that we can believe something different to get a different outcome? Right? So I want you to put a pin in that. And so the next one is your spiritual self. And what your spiritual self, again, It's not necessarily about religion, but it's about your core values, your self of identity. What is it that you believe about yourself? And I think that as a woman of faith, I always tell you that, I'm going to go to the word. My core values come out the word and the promises of God. So you got to ask yourself, what do you believe in? What are your values? What are the things that are guiding your life? And so for me, the word says that God did not give me a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. So if the word of God is a core belief of mine, I'm going to use that to drive my decision making, to drive my actions, to drive my mindset, to control the way I feel. Because in the Bible says the word fear, or do not be afraid, or fear not, it's in there 365 times. So if the word is 300, that's a do not be afraid for each day. So each day that you wake up, there is a word in the Bible that says do not fear or do not be afraid, right? So obviously, although we were created with sensations and feelings, emotions that can evoke fear, we have been given the authority and the power to overcome fear, right? From our physical self, our emotional self, our mental self, by our spiritual self, we can overcome all of that. And so when people ask me, how do I come over fear? You have to develop your spiritual muscle, because that's what's going to help you overcome the fear that happens and takes place within yourself, your physical self, your emotional self, your mental self. When you get your spiritual self in line and fortitude, and have the strength and the power, and know that you have that spirit that you can overcome that and walk in authority over fear, then that spiritual self will override all the other selves. See how that works? And so when you trust in God, I wrote down, when you trust in God, it gives you comfort, and the comfort of the Holy Spirit. And we know the Holy Spirit has fruit. It's evident by fruit. The fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. All of these things override fear. So we don't have to fear. We wrestle not against flesh and blood. This is the thing about your spiritual self, is the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy. The enemy wants you afraid. The enemy wants you not to do the things that God has called you to do. So he will put seeds of doubt, seeds of fear, seeds of unknown, seeds of distraction, seeds of unwillingness, seeds of contentment, all to get you to kill and destroy the dreams and the visions that you have. And that's why the word says that you were not given a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind, because we have the power to overcome the works of the enemy. And so with that, you got to reaffirm your faith. Reaffirm your faith of who you are and whose you are. Again, that's why it's so important to understand your core beliefs and what is it, and the values that you have. What is it that you believe? What's your belief system? What are the things that is going to set you apart from everybody else, right? What are the things, how are you going to grow your spiritual self to a place where it can override your physical self, your mental self, and your emotional self? Because the fear is always going to be there. Again, physically, we were created to have a fear experience because it's for protection. Man, how many people have ever experienced going in a place and you feel uneasy, like, so it may look weird. You get a sensation like, I don't know if I'm supposed to be here, right? That's a feeling of fear. It's a protective mechanism that we were created with. But so often we take that feeling, we take those physical experience, turn it into a mental phenomenon, and then now that fear rules our lives. But we were not given a spirit of fear. We begin a spirit of power, love, and sound mind. So, but that's all within your spiritual self, your belief system, your core values. If you don't believe that, if you don't have that value that you can overcome fear, then you are going to operate in your physical self. You're going to operate in your emotional self. You're going to operate in your mental self, which has the capacity to grow fear and intensify fear. And you think that now that's a belief that you have. Remember, the fear is an unpleasant emotion started by a belief that something or someone is dangerous, right? So because you're not fortifying your spiritual self to overcome your other selves, your emotional self, your physical self, and your mental self, then that fear grows. And it hinders you, it halts you from moving forward. It stops the plan of God in your life, and it keeps you in a level of contentment. And that's not what we're here to do, right? We are definitely here to live our purpose. And adulting in our purpose, that's what the goal and the mission is to truly be adulting in our purpose, where we're not living in a state of fear, but we're operating in power, we're operating in a sound mind, we're operating in love, which all covers all fears and can conquer all fears, no matter what that is. So again, so the 4 things I want you to really hone in on is identify your physical hurts, trauma, or pains, right? That's causing some physical fear. Identify your emotional fears. Those feelings, those sensations. When does that feeling of fear comes? I want you to track and identify it. Evaluate your mindset. What are the things that you're thinking? What are the things that you're telling yourself? What are the things that you are allowing others to tell you? And then reaffirm your faith. Reaffirm your core belief. Reaffirm your self-identity. How are you identifying yourself? Reaffirm that. And this is how we can put that all together to overcome fears. So when you live a life with God and have a relationship with God, it guides and helps you, right? Having a relationship with God, and I said relationship, not religion, 2 different things. And so when you have that relationship with God, it allows you to operate in that state of power, in that state of authority, in your relationships, in your finances, in your career decisions, in your professional lives, in your businesses, right? So all of these things are relevant to what we're doing and how we are going to live that purpose-driven life. And so this is how, that fear can stop us from our purpose, but they don't have to work together. So whether it's the fear of the unknown, fear of change, fear of success, fear of not having the resources, fear of not feeling that you're good enough, fear of criticism, what other people are going to think, fear of taking risks, whatever the fear is that you are dealing with today, right now, that that is stopping you from moving forward, that's stopping you from not pursuing the greatness that is in you, the greatness that you were born with, the abundant life that that you were created. It's time to do those 4 things. Identify those physical fears, those emotional fears, evaluate your mindset, and reaffirm your faith. Because the more you do that, the greater power that you're going to have. Again, what you think, what you feel is what you say is what you do. And we're not operating in fear. We're truly adulting in my purpose. That is the movement to help you as millennial professionals discover your purpose, achieve your goals, and use your God-given gifts to create a life of true impact and influence, right? So that is what I wanted to share with you on today, because I wanted to just kind of address that, because I figured if one person asked the question, there's many people out there that have that question or are struggling with fear. And so hopefully that was helpful. And you got at least one thing that you can do today to help you overcome the fear that you are facing. So we'll be back next week to talk some more about purpose and adulting. So you can truly be adulting in my purpose and making an impact. So be sure to join our Facebook group, our Millennial Professionals Making Impact and Influence. And let's continue the discussion there. So we can really move beyond just surviving and really getting to the success and the level of significance and the level of impact that God has destined for us. This is what adulting in my purpose is all about. So we'll be back again next week. I'm going to share some more about adulting, about understanding your purpose and helping you with that journey. So you don't want to miss it. But until then, you know what to do. You stay safe and you be blessed. Bye-bye.